first things first, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. Yeah, cold.
Cold?
Yeah, it's cold. I mean, and my house just takes so much heat to warm up. But it's all good.
Keeps you sharp, right? A little bit cold.
Yeah, it does.
So before we get into the new album, I'd like to start kind of where you guys left off with the previous one, which is, well, you pretty much toured for 3 albums and the whole cycle straight. Then in 2019, you decided, okay, we need a break. We're going to do nothing but working on this band and just working on ourselves a little bit, or giving ourselves a bit of time. What was it like then once you had to restart everything again? What was your mindset going into kind of a new process and then a new album cycle?
Yeah, I think we were ready. We took our time with the time off. We didn't plan on any specific amount of time off. It just kind of rolled over. Okay. And it became a year in total, or just over a year. And we thought that the beginning of 2020, like January, it made sense that we would go back into it then. So we knew that we felt ready. Like we couldn't do it if we didn't feel it. It's hard to describe like how we know when we're ready, but I think we'd had enough time. We knew that we had to do it at some point, we couldn't just we could put it off forever if we didn't actually just get together. But once we got together, I was a little bit nervous, just to see how it was going to go. And because the album process, it takes a while and it's such an abstract thing that you can't really predict how it's going to go. And, in the past, there's been points where people, you start to go a bit mad and you start to kind of lose sight of what you're doing a bit. And it's a very weird thing to do. Like, I think for people that don't do it, like, it's hard to imagine. You just go into this weird like headspace where you're just thinking about it constantly. And you want to do your best work, but you can't force yourself. Like, nobody can. You can rely on your skill, your technical ability and things like that. But in terms of like songwriting, it's so hard to nail. So what helps is there's 3 of us, because then it takes the burden off one person. Like if it's just one of, I've worked on my own before and it's much harder. But yeah, we fell into it pretty easily, and we picked things up pretty quickly, and we started going through recordings that we had from sound checks from previous tours and looked at that kind of stuff, and then it developed from there.
One thing I regularly hear from artists is when they take some time off or they stop doing a certain thing for a little while, there's always that thought in the back of their mind, do we still have it? Do we still have the magic? Was there a moment for the band that you were in the studio or just jamming, I should say, where you kind of felt, oh, okay, we got it, we still got it, and we're on a right track now?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to remember what order the tracks were produced in, but I think there were definitely points where I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely good. And I was excited to get it done and to work on it and for people to hear it. And Walk a Mile, like that, the new track, like that was pretty. I got really excited about that. Like I really enjoyed the process, and we felt very comfortable. And I think it's a very mature sounding track to me. Like I think it shows how we've matured quite a bit, and it's very clean and concise, and I just really like that track. And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, like, oh, this is, yeah, people will like this. Like, it's so like even now the album's done and we're promoting it, and I'm still like, I've got no idea like how or where we actually place. Like in the music scene and industry and things like that. I've got no idea. Like, it's just because it's been so long, like since we've been out touring and stuff. And for a lot of people, there's been a long break, and it feels, this time feels quite daunting actually, like going into this campaign, like, because as far as I'm concerned, like, people don't know we exist. Like, it's funny because we're not celebrities, like we're not individually famous, like, which is partly like deliberate, like we avoid doing certain things, but the band is obviously famous and successful, and people know their name. Like, if I meet people and they ask me what I do, 99% of the time when I say, you know, I'm in a band called Alt J, they've heard of Alt J, like, and then they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm not making it up. Yeah, but it's just, so I never ever get recognized. So it's a funny thing. It's just like, yeah, we're about to release an album. We've had a #1 album in the past, like in the UK, you know, and it's like, are people going to listen to this?
In that sense, does it both on a personal level, as you mentioned now, but also on a creative level, does it feel like kind of starting fresh then?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say starting fresh, but I mean, because it definitely feels like it's been quite a slog to get here. Four albums has been the last 10 years for us, like, sure. and it definitely, I'm aware of those years, and like, I'm definitely like, I feel it. Like, I definitely, the break was great, you know, and it was needed, and it was refreshing. And even to be honest, during the pandemic, like, we had so much time that we were able to just keep working and be really thorough, and that was good for us. But I still feel, for, you know, 10 years in, and so, but at the same time, like I was saying, this album could go anywhere. I've got no idea. Like, it could be hugely successful, or it could be not so successful, you know, in terms of like sales and things. I don't know. I've just got no idea. Like, it's very isolated at the moment because I'm doing all of this promo and stuff on Zoom as well. So
sure.
But I've got no feedback. Like, I mean, I could, if I wanted to, like, I could look at feedback more, and I deliberately avoid reviews, and you know, our manager often sends us like feedback from the record label and stuff, and I don't interact with it because it doesn't, without sounding like ungrateful or like rude or anything, it just doesn't make a difference. Like, it shouldn't make a difference whether people like it or not. Like, it might sound weird, but I do this because I you know, I consider myself to be an artist, and whether it's music or painting or whatever it is, like, I do it as a means of expression, and if I think about what people want too much, then it will ruin it. So I don't really know, like, what we're going into, you know. I mean, I've seen some of the ticket sales for the tours and things, and they're doing pretty well, and that's a really great feeling, because touring, obviously, I want every show to sell out. Like, I want that, because why not? And a sold out show, there's no better feeling, and you know, so I always kind of feel a bit like on the fringe. So I do always feel like fresh in that way, and that, like, I don't think I'll ever be like, oh yeah, we definitely made it, like, or I've definitely made it. Like, I don't ever think that, and not that if I did, it would be a bad thing. I just don't see myself like that. I don't see myself as being any further up the ladder than anyone else. And that might sound insane, because I am in a lot of ways. I'm aware of my fortune, but I'm also like, I'm only as good as my last piece of work, really, and I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Is part of that then, and the humility as well, is it part of that then, challenging yourself creatively? And you as a band and as a group have always been very open to try new things, and to experiment with sounds and structures and those kind of things. So is that part of it then, that you feel like, once you've done something, then, as you mentioned, okay, that's done, but you need to, as an artist, you need to find new ways of expressing yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I don't stop really like thinking about how I can channel what it is that I'm feeling. Like I don't stop thinking about it. And to be honest, it's like I think about it too much because I don't do enough in terms of how, in relation to how much I think about doing stuff. And it gets to be stressful because like last night, for example, I watched the new film, Tragedy of Macbeth. And I really, really, really liked it. Like, and it's hard to follow because Shakespeare is just hard to follow. Like, especially in a movie format where you can't analyze. I mean, I did acting like a couple of years ago, and I did a Hamlet, the soliloquy, and I had to analyze every single word that he says because I needed to know the meaning because it's not blatantly obvious. I had to like. So watching that, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of it was just like trying to figure it out, and I get like really, really inspired by all kinds of things. You know, film is a huge inspiration to me, and it was such an interesting film in the way it was shot and performances and everything, the lighting, everything, and it inspires me, and I want to do that. Like, I want to be like, I wish I could do that, and I do little things, and I've got like video cameras and stuff, and I film stuff, and I put so much pressure on myself, and I'm a perfectionist as well, so it's never ever going to be what I want it to be in my head, and I'm trying to accept that it's about the process, it's not about the end result, and I do things which are that about the process, but I'm constantly thinking like, what else can I do? Like, how else can I say what I want to say? And I'm just so in awe of like so much. And I hope that never ever goes away. Like I sometimes worry that it would, and that I would lose like my passion and thirst for consuming art. But so far it's only like escalated really, like, as I get older. So when it comes to us and our music, I often, I'm proud of what we've done, but I often, if I listen to it too much, I start analyzing it and I think, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. So I have to just leave it alone and just accept that we did a good job, and people, you know, will hopefully like it, and we did what we could at the time, and it's a balance, you know, because there's three of us as well. So, you know, you've got to be considerate of each other. You can't be like, well, I want to do this. You know, you have to compromise.
With that in mind, then, and this doesn't have to be necessarily something that you came up with or contributed, but can we delve into one thing that ended up on the record that you're particularly happy with or proud of?
Yeah, sure. Let me think. At the moment, I'm really into the track Philadelphia. And I personally, like, I really struggled with that when we were making it, because it first of all, we make a demo, like the three of us when we're writing, I'll record into Ableton, and then we've got like a demo and we can kind of go over it as we're writing, and, you know, play around with things, and it was going nicely, but I was struggling with the percussion. I just didn't know what to do, because everything I did, I felt just sounded average, and it just didn't add anything. And it got to the point where, you know, we were recording with our producer, and I still felt the same. And I just knew that, like, it couldn't be left like that. And also there's certain things which I felt were a little bit, to be honest, a little bit cheesy, and I didn't like that. But I was on my own with that opinion. And, you know, we were respectful of each other, and, you know, we tried to be all the time, and I knew that it wasn't like anything personal. I was just having a hard time with the track, so I ended up taking the track home with no percussion or drums. It was just everything else. And I took it home and worked it on my headphones, and I used you know, different samples, and I tried a few things because I had nothing to lose, and I ended up coming up this. If you listen carefully, there's some kind of like there's some sounds that are like the impacts and like percussion sounds that are heavily manipulated, they sound kind of like burial kind of stuff, which I really like. I like the sound of when I was doing that in my headphones. And then I found a drum sample, and the main drum beat, there's like a clave in there. Came from a sample which I re-recorded myself in the studio, and it completely invigorated the track and gave it this personality which kind of came out of nowhere because I was experimenting. And it really it just made me feel amazing that I'd done something which I was really proud of for myself and the others really liked. And it's now one of my favorite tracks on the album, and the people that I played it to really love it. And, there's strings on there which are insane. Like our friend Will Gardner composed a string section for that, and they were recorded live, and it's a really special track. And it's one of those pieces of work which, whatever happens, that I can always say I was a part of that, and that's really, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, definitely. That's one that stood out for me as well, where the strings, as you mentioned, and then that operatic voice almost kind of saying Philadelphia. It's a really interesting track. And then I wrote down one line from that. Sonny Green is feeling slow, pepped up with a bag, so righteous he sings all of Rubber Soul.
Yeah.
So are you a big Rubber Soul fan?
No. I think Joe, he told me at the time that it's so funny with the lyrics because it's not my world at all. I haven't got a clue what most of the lyrics mean, and it's not that they don't make sense. It's just I don't listen to them, to be honest. Like, it's Joe's world, and I think maybe because my hearing isn't that great. Like, when I grew up listening to music, I didn't focus on the lyrics at all, because I hear lower end better, and because I can feel it. And I still, with Us, I don't know what a lot of the lyrics mean, but I knew that he put my name in it, which is quite cool. But I don't know what it means.
Is there, because you mentioned kind of your affinity for cinema as well, and this has been a recurring thing, I think, with the band in general, but there were mentions of kind of a serial killer podcast and those kind of things. So do you as a group then discuss, even though you're perhaps not directly linked to the lyrics, do you kind of discuss themes and discuss kind of things that go on in the world?
Yeah. When we're in the studio, we spend, I think, just as much time talking as we do writing and recording. It's really it's an important part of the process. I mean, we've been friends now since 2007, and the reason that we started the band in the first place was because we were friends. We didn't get together through an ad or anything like that. We were just friends at university, and we've always had very quite strong interests in similar things. And films come up a lot. Especially Joe and I, we both watched quite a lot of films, and we try to we seek out a lot of different films for different reasons, whether it's an actor or a time period or a different language, that kind of thing. And we do talk about all kinds of things. It's a great way to, I think, because we have very similar ways of seeing things as well, that it's very easy to have a conversation about current events or culture, and it ends up being, I think it definitely ends up influencing the lyrics. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that I might have said something to Joe in the past or talked about something, and it's found its way into the lyrics. It's a really important part of the process. Sometimes we think, oh fuck, we haven't done anything today. We've just sat here and talked. But actually, it is just as important, because it's another way. Making music together is in a way a different form of conversation. Sure. And it's all kind of the same thing, and you sometimes feel a lot better when we've sat for an hour and just talked about whatever, because it also can lead to the music directly. You start talking about an album or an artist, and did you hear that thing they did here, or so and so, and you just pull it up. And it is, I think, all kind of a lot of different art forms benefit from, it's like feedback, you know, the opinion of your peers is extremely important.
And I suppose, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but this has been the last 10 years of your life as well. And it doesn't hurt to have a sense of camaraderie amongst each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a long time. You know, it's a long time. It's important. It's important to maintain it.
You mentioned kind of, well, as a band, you've never delved into very specific things that's going on in the world. I think Get Better is maybe one of the first or one of the only ones that really focus on what's going on now. And you yourself, I read, had your own struggles with with the pandemic and everything. So what did that song, when you first heard that, what did that mean to you, and how did it find its way to the album?
Yeah, well, it came. I think I was actually at home, so I was what's called shielding in the UK, where, you know, if you're a higher risk from COVID, the government advised people like myself to stay inside. It's crazy, and not leave the house for certain periods throughout 2020 and 21. And I think during the period that it was later on in the year, Joe was writing Get Better with Gus, and I think to be honest, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh right, so you've made this and I'm not in it. You know, I was a little bit jealous, and then, you know, I sort of thought, oh well, could I contribute to this? And I knew that I didn't need to. And I was pretty happy that it was going, that they were doing that, and it was potentially going on the album, because I think it just added to the depth of the album. I think it's a really good contribution, and I think a lot of people relate to it. You know, it's clever in a way that it's not about anybody in like specifically, and like you said, like we don't really like get too specific about the things that we write about. But this time, yeah, I think it was hard not to, like, because it really did have a big effect, you know, on everyone. And the process of this album was heavily affected by the pandemic, and not necessarily in a bad way. Like it just was in the background, and there were periods where it was very stressful, because of the problem is that because the three of us and our producer and engineer were the only people in the studio. And so, you know, and it was our studio, so we could go in whenever we liked, like, you know, but we weren't, back then, when we weren't that sure about how infectious it was, all that kind of stuff. And we didn't want to take too many risks, but also we knew we wanted to get the album finished and keep working, and you know, you find a good pace and you don't want to just stop. And those periods were stressful for me, because I am higher risk, and the advice for me is this, and I didn't want to say, like, you know, like you can't work while I'm not there, but I didn't want them to. Like I didn't want to be like, I didn't want this album to be finished and then me just not have a connection to it, and because that it's not good. You know, and luckily everyone felt the same, so we all realized that we all need to be there. And then, yeah, we managed to get through it, and it actually, I think the time was a good thing for us in the end. I think we'd not had that much time before, and it gave us a lot of opportunities to be more, you know, we could think about things a bit more. I mean, it wasn't as rushed.
A little bit more deliberate, maybe.
Yeah. I think it changed a little bit over the months, which I think was good for it.
Yeah, there's one last thing that I would like to talk about concerning the album, then, because I call it field recordings. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but those little bits of interview clips, or just somebody saying a word, or these. I think the album even starts with somebody opening a Coke can, and those little kind of bits of texture. What was the reasoning behind that, or what was the idea behind those things?
I think it varies really. Like the Coke can at the beginning, for example, that's a literal kind of, because the song is about somebody that we know who's like, or at the time was like addicted to Coca-Cola and like sugary drinks, like everyone on planet Earth. So we thought, why not get the opening of the can? And then we thought, well, we know someone. So the guy saying cold and sizzling, like he's a crew guy for one of us. He's our front of house sound engineer on tour, a guy called Lance Reynolds. And we've always thought he's got a really interesting voice. So we thought, yeah, let's just do that. And then there's a few other things like rain and thunder. There's some ocean sounds that were recorded in California. There's some skateboard sounds recorded in Delaware by somebody that I know. And I recorded a few things at home and manipulated them. And I think a lot of that stuff is about just creating original sound as well. So we're not just taking samples, because that you can get into trouble. It's sometimes a nightmare if you use a sound and you think it's free and it turns out it's not. But I think a lot of it is original sound is just much more interesting because nobody's heard it before, and a lot of it's textural as well. Our producer's a big advocate for experimentation, and he really encourages us to do just things that might seem a bit silly at the time, but it's really just about how it sounds. And we've always done that. And I think it's a good practice, because you can, especially nowadays, you can take any sound and make it sound like anything else. And it's a really fun thing to do. At home, a lot of the time, the stuff that I make for myself, I'm not making like tracks. I'm just making sounds that just like feel good in my ears. It's just I find it very relaxing. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one last thought then, to close off. You mentioned your own work. I think it was 2016 that you released High Anxiety. Are you? You mentioned you're not really making tracks, but are you thinking about at some point releasing another one?
I think about it all the time. Yeah. I mean, I have so much work that I should. The problem is that I want it to be, like I said earlier, I'm a perfectionist. So I want it to be so good. And I go backwards and forwards thinking I could just release an album. I could just find stuff that I like and release an album. Or I could go into a studio with a producer that I like and flesh stuff out and re-record stuff and get other people in. And I would like to do that. I've been saying that for years. And the trouble is I'm not going to have time now. So it would have to be after this album. And to be honest, like, I'm fortunate in that I don't need to for financial reasons. Like, I'm not obliged to do that contractually. Like, it's something that if I want to do it, I can do it whenever I like. And I just really like working, and I enjoy the process, and there is a little bit of like, there's so much good music that I listen to and I compare myself to them all the time. And I just, like the new James Blake album came out and I was just like, well, there's no point in me releasing anything because this is what I want, it's just it's so silly, like the FK Twigs album or something like that. And it's just like, well, these guys are doing it, so what's the point in me doing it? But I don't know. And I'm also lazy. Like, I'm really lazy. Like, if it was up to me, I wouldn't do anything ever. So, but I do really want to. I just need to get my act together.
Well, sorry. Maybe at some point the time is right and everything will fall into place and you'll have an avenue to do so. So that's always good to have in the back of your mind.
I think so. And actually, like, touring actually can get me more into that kind of like mindset, because I'm around people all the time and I'm meeting people all the time, and there's a lot of conversations about it and that kind of thing. And it might actually help, I think, because at the moment, like I was saying earlier, I don't even feel like I'm even a part of the music industry right now. It's weird. Like, I keep to myself. Like, I don't really I don't do much. Like, I just, it's funny. It's so weird. Like looking back, I've been to, like award shows, and I've met celebrities, and like sold out Madison Square Garden and all this stuff. Right. So, like, so hard to believe that it might be soon again. Who knows? Like it's surreal. So right now I'm just a hermit. Like, yeah.
I understand completely, because I have a similar thing where the last 2 years I've been basically sat at home doing what I'm doing now. And yesterday I had one face-to-face interview, in which it happens maybe once every 3 months or something. So yeah. It's really, it feels kind of, to me, it feels like a limbo thing where you're kind of waiting for somebody to give you the sign that you can go ahead and
yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think I'm actually lucky that I know that, this tour mid-February, I'm that's what I'm doing, and it's 2 months in the touring the US. So I'm nervous, but I'm also like really looking forward to just that I'm looking forward to doing something different, and getting to play on stage every single night. And I think if I didn't have that, I would have to plan stuff, like, because I think, like most people, the last 2 years is just, I couldn't just, I would need plans and things to do.
Well, luckily you have a album release with The Dream on schedule, and I think America, right, first in from February to April, and then you're doing some dates in the UK and Ireland and Scotland, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best. Hopefully they can all happen, because that's always an uncertainty as well. But hopefully, you get to be back on stage soon, and I wish you all the best with The Dream.
Thank you. I appreciate it.